we're going to go ahead and continue with our media availabilities here this morning. We've now been joined by Erik Jones. Erik, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, you have some fun memories here at Darlington Raceway. Just talk a little bit about this weekend, the Southern 500, and what it means to our sport.
I think it's become a more and more important weekend. You know, I guess for me, I remember as a kid watching the race, it got a little bit distorted for a few years with some dates and where it kind of fell on the schedule, and it's become pretty cemented back into Labor Day weekend as its probably rightful place in the schedule and in the sport. So I look forward to it every year. You know, obviously I probably have some bias there, but you know, it's just a neat race, a neat weekend. Pack the house usually every time we come here, and just kind of a fun one to be a part of.
All right, we'll now go to questions for Erik. If you have one, raise your hand. We'll start up front with Holly.
Hi, Erik. Could you just talk about, obviously, you would prefer to already have secured a championship opportunity, but coming here, you've got to feel pretty optimistic that this is a place where you could pull this off this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's been it's just been a long year, a lot of different reasons, but I think if I could pick one, if you told me I had to pick one track other than a super speedway, I would probably pick Darlington to try to go win. So definitely some confidence in that. You know, I think anytime you come to a place where you've had success a few times and with different groups, you know, you have just the notes to dive into and just that confidence of feeling like you know how to get around the place, know what you need to do. So yeah, I'm excited about that. It's not going to be easy by any stretch. This is a tough race in a lot of ways, but you know, I think we have a good plan of knowing what we need out of our race car, knowing how we need to manage the race, and knowing what we need to do to be in position. So we need everything to go right, but I think it's a great shot for us for sure.
All right, we'll go to Steve.
Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. Erik, you talk about managing the race and doing everything. How do you manage today? What's the obviously the objective is to win the pole today. We understand that, but how important is today? What critical is today? What do you want to feel out of that race car when you first hit the racetrack?
I think this is one where you target maybe a little bit different feel in practice than what you're probably looking for in the race. It's going to be pretty hot, middle of the day. We don't start the race till 6:30 at night. It's already going to be sun going down, cooling down, and then obviously by the end of stage one, you're going to be completely covered in dark. So, for me, I'm looking for different feel. I can kind of put some things to the side that you feel today, during practice, and put them to the side just because it's a hot, slick track. And, you got to pick out, okay, we're not going to have to worry about that tomorrow. Let's just focus on this part of the corner. So that's kind of unique to here. The only other race I can think maybe that's similar to that is Charlotte for the 600 with it going into the night and practicing during the day like that. So it definitely goes through a big transition when it cools down. And this race is so different than the spring race, too, with it being at night. This place changes so much with temperatures. But that makes it fun. Gives you something to kind of guess for, right? And I think that's kind of the fun part of racing sometimes.
All right, we'll go in the back to Adam.
Adam Carabine, RacingRefresh.com. Just wondering about the fact that Darlington is the end of the regular season this year instead of the start of the playoffs. Do you think that will change some of the aggression at the end of the race with people trying to lock in their last spots? And does that maybe make people go a little more aggressive trying to win the Southern 500 instead of playoff drivers maybe just trying to make their way out of the first round?
In some ways. I mean, I think Darlington's a bit of a unique one. There's not a lot of places we go anymore where you race the track a lot. You're a lot of days now you're just fighting with other competitors and fighting for track position, and there is some of that here, right? You have to be up front, but you do race the track a lot more here probably than anywhere else we go. So you kind of settle in. You get through that first 8 laps of a run where it's kind of you're in the hornet's nest, and then you're kind of settling into your groove and trying to manage your run and manage your car, and you can kind of pick people off one at a time. So, if the race stretches long and goes, a long green run to the end, I don't think you're going to see anything different. Where it will get crazy if it happens is all, late yellows. And we see that in the spring too, right? But, if you get some late yellows stacked up at the end, which is a little bit, I think, more rare for the Southern 500 for whatever reason, you don't see it. But, yeah, if that happens, I definitely think you'll see more aggression.
All right, we'll come up front to Mark and then Jordan.
Mark Darrow, PRN. Good morning. At the start of the playoff, you have 16 drivers in there. Are you conscious of all those 16, and how do you balance, I've got things to accomplish, my team has things to accomplish, I'm still trying to win, and are you cognizant of those guys, and how do you balance that?
It's a great question. I think if somebody told you they didn't think about it, they're probably lying. I think we all do. I've been in the spot in the playoffs where, you're hoping for that extra bit of respect. And 90% of the time, I think you get it. Maybe not the first round, the round of 16, but you start squeezing down to guys in the round of 8 and the round of 4. Those last few 6 races of the season, I feel like you start to see a bit of a change in the way you race some of those guys. And no doubt at Phoenix at the end for the championship, there's no way I would want to wreck a championship contending guy in Phoenix. So, yeah, it changes a little bit depending on how competitive you are in the race. Obviously, you got a car that can go win. You're going to have to race them. You can't just give up a win for them. But, if you're running 10th, battling a guy who's in the championship hunt at the end of the year, you're probably going to give him an extra break. I think most of the field would have to agree with that.
Do you do that because you hope to be in the playoff next year and you hope to get that same kind of treatment or respect?
100%. I think a lot of the sport is what comes around goes around, right? And all the way from what you do on pit road. If you're a guy who's running 28th and you're on the lead lap and you're pitting ahead of a guy who's running second and you choose to block him in just so you can get out and screw his day up, probably going to come around if he's on the other end of the stick and you're running up front, right? And no different in being in the championship. If you give a guy a break who's running up there and is contending, and hopefully he remembers that. I feel like I try to race everybody really fair, and you just hope that comes back around. I know not everybody has the same mentality of that, right? But you just hope it swings around. I hope we're contending for wins and championships one day, and I hope that we get that same respect for sure.
All right, Jordan.
Jordan Bianchi, the Athletic. You kind of touched on this. First of all, what has this year been like for you in terms of expectations? We know beginning of the year, you guys have talked about there's be a slow integration to the Toyota, and maybe by the end of the year you kind of be up to speed. So kind of walk me through what that's been like. I
think the transition has been harder than what we anticipated. I would think we would all have thought by this point we would be in a better spot than what we are right now. Obviously it's been a tough year for me with the injury, and not that put me way behind, but missing a couple of races isn't great for the team. It isn't great for me. Getting comfortable again and changing everything in the car isn't easy. So I think there's a lot of things that have put us behind the 8 ball. But I guess my opinion on it all is that I just re-signed, right? And I wouldn't have re-signed if I think that we're going to continue to perform the way we are. It's not what I'm interested in racing, right? I want to go out and run up front. We all do. And staying with legacy, I think for me, was just the fact that I do believe we're going to improve. It's for sure taking longer than we hope. I think there's nobody in the company that would argue against that. But, we are working hard to get better, and we hope within the next 6 months, discounting the off season, that we're performing a lot better than what we are now.
All right, any final questions for Erik? Okay, we'll go to Reed.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire. The repave in Turn 2 is now 3 years old. Is it still an advantage?
I'll let you know in a little bit. I think it's more aged even from the spring, right? Just another summer of it. It's way less than it was. I would say the first time we came here with that patch, you had to be in it, and it was narrow. There was not 2 lanes in it. I've noticed in the last maybe 2 races, there's probably been a bit wider. You can't be quite as aggressive on that exit, being high like some guys are as what we were in the past before, but it's getting back there pretty quick. You definitely haven't been able to run that really low line easily, where you kind of enter on the apron, go up in the middle, and exit on the apron. That hasn't really been there because that patch has been so good, but I think if it's not all the way back for this race, a year from now, I think it will be.
All right, we'll take our final question from Claire.
Claire Belang, can you talk about where you can be aggressive on this track? Because, you're gripping the steering wheel and you got your hands full. You've been successful here. For the race fans, where can you be aggressive here?
Yeah, it's a fine balance. I think a lot of your speed is made in 1 and 2, and that's in some ways the more aggressive end. You're carrying way more speed there, especially on new tires. So you set up a lot of passes in 1 and 2. It's hard to make a pass down in 3 and 4. So you're trying to set up kind of your pass on the exit of 4 and then complete it either into 1 or through the middle of 1 and 2. So that's kind of your aggressive zone. It's easy to get frustrated in the race, and you see these wrecks happen a lot. Guys trying to get around someone, they start pushing a little bit harder, and all of a sudden either they're wadded up or they're both wadded up, just because the track, it just doesn't have the grip in it. You really can't make those crazy moves, those aggressive moves. So, I think 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is definitely the more aggressive corners, especially with the way the line goes. Sometimes you see Denny and Tyler run it a lot where they get really wide on entry and wide on exit. And that's not a super easy line to run. It's definitely an aggressive line. So I've always thought 1 and 2 is the more aggressive end.
All right, Erik, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.